Thank you so much, Romeo Busiku, for actually getting to let us know what Ugandans are thinking with regards to the current situation of insecurity within the country. Keep those coming on hashtag morning at NTV. We're getting directly into our Take Note conversation this morning, and our keen focus is on startups. Now, the startup industry in Uganda has grown from a tough struggle for an innovations award to incubators, fuel sector, to actually driving actual products that consumers can actually use, beg your pardon. Now, while several institutions like the UCC and MTN used to organize innovation comes as a creative ground for new startups in Uganda, 2018 has had none of this, with Total Superstar Challenge, of course, identifying a clean ground to push new startups to the forefront with financial support in the continental sprint. Now, given the fact that several startups have tried the industry and failed, successful startups in Uganda are reorganizing, making sure that their efforts are at the forefront to make sure that they also pull the others so they can all succeed, so to speak. And so to have that conversation with regards to digital, the digital area that you're all working in as entrepreneurs and startups alike, and making sure that we are startup ready, you are startup ready. We are joined in studios by Mr. Patel Mit. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
He is a creative director at Experience House. This is in London, but he's in the country for the Mfano Business Design Week. Is it that?
Yes, that's correct.
Great. So it started yesterday, and it's going to end on the 19th of
Yes.
this month. And you're talking about Saturday.
Yes.
Do let us in on this week. It's critical for startups, just ensuring that they're market ready. In Uganda, we have a statistic that startups do not, live to see their first second birthday at most.
Right.
So do let us know what the focus of this Business Design Week is all about.
So the week is all about taking the participants from local startups to help them understand how to create better business models, sustainable businesses, understand their customers, and to ultimately get ready to have a much better successful product that they can then pitch at the end of the week to investors, potential partners and mentors, to get feedback on that and to potentially grow as a result of the week.
So what exactly does happen in there? Because we always say that when it comes to entrepreneurship training, and especially going to the detail of making sure that your product is market ready or your service is market ready, is quite rigorous.
Yes.
And to make sure that every entrepreneur does understand what it entails, then it has to have some activities in there.
Absolutely.
So do let us in on the model of this particular business week for the startups.
Sure. So it is quite a rigorous week. It's quite intensive for each of the participants. There's a series of lectures and workshops. So each team will be led through a short lecture led by one of the designers, and then they'll be put into an independent room or independent working room where they'll be working on these workshop activities to help them understand either who their customer actually is, understand what the true problem that they're trying to solve, the cost of running their business, what potential revenue streams there are, many different types of tasks like that. And ultimately these will start to build up, and they'll be given lots of feedback through mentors throughout the week. And ultimately will lead up to creating a pitch that will be ready for the end of the week on the Saturday this week, when they'll be presenting in front of mentors. But it is definitely a very intensive week, and we need to make sure that the startups also take good breaks in between. There's a lot of critical thinking and promoting curiosity and creativity as well.
All right. So what happens after the presentations on Saturday?
Yeah.
Do we have some startups going up with some awards or some financing and funding for their projects? What exactly happens after the presentations?
So a lot of what's going into this week is what we call the big ask. So what do each of the startups actually need? Some of them will want financing and funding.
Right.
Some of them will just want partnerships or local government partnerships or donors, for example. So it'll be different for each of the startups that go through the journey. The idea is that once they leave the boot camp this week, they'll also be matched up with mentors to help them follow up, to make sure that they stay on track, which is also very important. We don't want them to leave the boot camp and just kind of struggle on their own. Is to make sure that they have the foundation underneath them to keep going and make sure that their businesses are successful.
Right. And what was the criteria of selecting the different startups to take part in this the year's bootcamp? There's the criteria, and also, is it still open? I mean, it just started yesterday.
Yes.
Are people allowed to join in halfway?
Well, it'll be too late to join for this one, but there's already plans for another one in early next year. Also, because it's only a 5-day program, once you miss the first day, it is quite difficult, but definitely interested in signing up for the next one early in the new year. The criteria, well, each of the startups are at various stages. Ultimately, we're looking for startups that are willing to take on new approaches and look at innovations in the way that they're learning. We're very keen to, as part of our partnership and bringing the Experience House skills and knowledge to this region, is to look at new ways of thinking about businesses, new ways of doing business, new ways of doing customer research and things like that. So there's more of, it's not necessarily a criteria for where the project will be, because they can be at different stages, but it's more of a criteria to be open to willing to learn new things.
Right. And it's critical that you started with that, because then this is not the first and the last engagement. It's going to happen again. So it's critical for us to understand what different sector players are actually doing to support startups. Let's now go to the engine of this conversation. And of course, let's look at startups. We have quite a number who watch this particular band of the show. And we always want them to know that, hey guys, it's about the passion. So let's start the conversation from scratch.
Okay.
What does it take to be an entrepreneur? Because many would tell you, but hey, I'm employed, I'm comfortable, I don't have what it takes to be an entrepreneur. Is that lingo correct? Do we say that some are set up or set apart for entrepreneurship and others are not? Is entrepreneurship a selected a field for a selected few, so to speak, or is it meant for every single person? Because that's the critical point to start with, for people to believe that, hey, I can get into this, or hey, that's a no-go zone.
Yeah, it's a very interesting topic or question. I think I always like to think creativity is in everybody. Being an entrepreneur is not easy. I think there's a lot of difficulty and lots of ups and downs. You'll have very good moments in running your own business. You'll have many tough moments in running a business. I do think it is for everyone, and I think we're now starting to see that there's a lot of online resources, a lot of places where you can learn the skills that are relevant to becoming an entrepreneur. So yes, it can be scary at first, but there's lots of places like these programs where once you have an idea, you can get the support. And I think a large part of being an entrepreneur is looking into your mentor network or connecting with a great mentor network that can guide you. There's a lot of people that have started successful businesses that you can learn from. And I think that's an invaluable part of being an entrepreneur. So yes, I think it's worth exploring for everybody to look at possibly starting their own business, but know that there is a lot of support behind the scenes that can help you on that journey.
All right, so guys, you can be an entrepreneur. Anyone can be an entrepreneur. Okay, so that is out of the question that anyone and everyone can be an entrepreneur or just start up something in terms of business. The other question is, fine, now I know I can be an entrepreneur, but what do I deal with? Which sector or which game do I start playing in terms of services that I'd like to offer, identifying the gaps? Where does it start? Is it a question of passion and purpose, or a question of there's a gap that I need to fill and there's money? What should it be? Yeah,
again, a very interesting question. And yesterday, in the first day of the boot camp, we really started talking about customers' needs. And ultimately, your business needs to provide value to customers or to businesses that you're dealing with. And if that's true, then more businesses, more customers will come to you. So it's about looking for a true need. Ultimately, your business needs to be needed by people who are going to pay or to sign up to your service. But I also think, looking back at passion, you should be passionate about what you take on as well, because ultimately you're the founder, you're the main engine behind this new business, and you need to be passionate about that idea. Certainly there could be long-term money gains, you're looking to make a great income from it, and no problem at all. It could be a social enterprise that you're looking to start, but ultimately that passion should be at the forefront of everything you're looking to do.
Right, sure. And it's that passion that will keep you going in the hard times.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Okay, so anyone can be an entrepreneur. You need to make sure that your passion is in check, and you need to make sure that you are offering a value.
Yes.
Sort out a need that is there in the market.
Absolutely.
All right. Now, of course, we always say that there's no idea that anyone will wake up and have that someone doesn't have.
Right.
So let's talk about competition and making sure that you're different from the rest, especially now that you're starting out. I did tell you that the statistics here are worrying. Apparently, we're the most entrepreneurial state, but unfortunately, startups don't survive to their first, second birthday. Let's not even speak about the third, because quite a few get to that particular threshold. So with regards to making sure that you sort out competition and that you stand out from the rest, knowing that you're not coming with any fresh idea into the market, what ideally should an entrepreneur do, especially the founders?
Yeah, it's a extremely competitive landscape in startups. And yesterday, again, part of the program, one of the key things we look at is what is your value proposition? What makes you unique versus your competition? There is an element of how well you can execute the idea. Somebody may have a better idea, several people may have the same idea as you. How well can you execute it when you talk about touch points and that a great customer service and things like that, but also what makes you unique versus your competition. So a lot of what we're looking at is how do you do great analysis of your competitors? What are they doing well? What are they not doing so well? What is missing? What is the innovation that you can bring to the market that will make you stand out? And these things can take a while to do, to work through, but it will ultimately make sure that your business ultimately stands out and thrives as well.
And I'm happy that you actually pointed out to the key critical area, which is execution.
Yes.
Because we come in with these brilliant ideas, a big dream, but we are always, found short of execution.
Yep.
You have this great idea, and even when it comes to you delivering to your clientele, you promise them heaven, but you underperform, so to speak. So it's critical for you to walk the talk and make sure that your executions are perfect. Yes. The customer touch points are also perfect and streamlined. All right, let's talk about entrepreneurs articulating their value. How do you charge for your services and products? Yes. We talked of competition, and a majority would say that I can't play on the execution excellence bit, but I can play on the pricing bit.
Right.
What should it be ideally? Because a majority shortchange themselves in the name of, I want people to come to me because maybe I'm the most affordable in this particular space. So how do startups go about cracking that puzzle, which is quite huge for a majority?
Yeah. There's a lot of testing that needs to be done. You need to test different pricing strategies, different pricing models. Obviously, an easy one to do is undercut everybody else, but you might be providing a much better service. So getting feedback from your customers and doing regular competitive checks on seeing what else is out there and seeing how the pricing varies, but also looking at your cost structure and where your revenue is going to come from will help you figure out what your best pricing strategies will be. Certainly when I've started my business, I looked at providing affordable education, but also on our corporate training, we're a bit more expensive than others, but we know that there's great value in the great content that we deliver. But we're also evaluating that constantly as well, because the competitor landscape is always growing. So you need to make sure that you're adjusting your pricing accordingly. It is very tricky, but a lot of testing can help with that.
A lot of testing.
Yes, as well.
All right, and also making sure that, like we said, once you promise to deliver on certain standards, make sure you stay at that.
Exactly.
Because it's out of that customer that you'll get the next. And a majority of referrals, actually, customers that come through referrals don't care about your pricing.
Right.
They just care about your delivery.
Exactly.
Which is critical as well.
It's really important, and I always like to say that your first set of true customers will come through referrals, and really bank on that. Get some good clients in, get some great referrals, get great reviews, and then you can start thinking about kind of greater digital marketing or social media, things like that. But those first few customers that you have are essentially your ambassadors, your early adopters that will provide you great feedback and help you grow.
Right. Let's look about this other thing that people say is a factor that actually comes to downplay your business, or is a start to taking your business down if you're not careful.
Right.
And this is where you are a startup. Fine, when you're starting, you'll be the cleaner of the office, you'll be everything, the office messenger, every single thing.
Yeah.
But when the business starts growing, then you'll need to employ people.
Yes. Absolutely.
And these people can actually break or make.
Absolutely. And it was a very interesting topic yesterday where I always like to think that, especially as Experience House, as digital skills training providers, we're always asked to provide great technical skills. That's what a lot of people come to ask us about. But I always like to say, look, before you even learn all of those technical skills, you need to have a great team culture and individuals who make that team. The first couple of hires that a startup makes will be crucial to making sure that business grows. And certainly in some of the startups that I've worked in, some of those hires that were made by the founders led to a very poor working culture, which led to the business actually failing within the first 2 years, like you mentioned. So it is a very, very important thing. And as a founder, it's always worth really making sure that you're not just hiring for the sake of having additional resource to help you as your business grows, but making sure that that person is truly passionate about working for that business and really buys into what the business is all about and the team culture. It's really, really important. And again, like you said, first 2 years, sometimes it's the team that can actually bring it down.
Right, and it
Right.
happens quite a bit.
Exactly.
Because once you're not there, they do what they really want to do, and
Yep.
it's interesting. But Patel,
Mm-hmm.
how do you go about identifying a passionate individual to bring on board? Because the
Yeah.
majority, once they actually come to you, maybe for interviews, will exude a lot of passion,
yeah,
a lot of
yeah.
fire in them. But once employed, the lethargy kicks in. So
Yes,
how do you
yes.
go about identifying a person who will be loyal and excellent to the end?
Yeah, I always like to say that I base a lot of it on conversations that I have outside of a normal interview,
Okay.
of how well I can actually judge this person's character. I will obviously look at what they've accomplished in the past, but also I'm actually not looking at more of their academic or career projection, but more what they're actually doing in their spare time. So we actually recently hired a young executive to look at our digital marketing in Experience House, and I was really intrigued by her blog, her travels, her Instagram, things like that, that really showed me that she had a true passion outside of her normal work activities. So things like that, for me as a founder, really are important, and that's what I kind of stress more so than sometimes the academic or career projection they've already had.
Right.
Yes.
And we always say in this particular space as experts that you can never train for passion,
No.
but you can train for skill.
Yes.
So look
Absolutely.
for passion first and
Absolutely.
the fire in them.
Yes.
All right, okay. As we bring this to a wrap, I want you to speak to financing and funding of projects, of businesses, of different, kind of startup companies, because now they're quite a majority because the needs as well are quite huge. Should we borrow to start or should we save to start?
Yeah.
That's the critical question, and we've been having quite a majority going under just because they borrowed to start.
Yeah.
They are not so sure about their business plan,
Right.
and it didn't work out, and you're indebted,
Yes.
depressing,
Yes.
and stuff like that. So what
Yeah.
what should happen? Should you borrow to start or save to start?
So I personally think save to start. It's a much better approach. I think using some of the approaches that can be learned from product design and business design. So using a lean methodology and starting to say, well, I'm going to try and get my business out there into the market with the lean resources that I have, minimal resources, so I can test the market and make sure that I have the right business before I actually start looking for funding or investors or taking on a loan. So trying to do that with minimal resources at the beginning so that you're not putting a lot of at stake or falling into a trap where you then the business falls over and then you've got quite a bit of debt to pay
Right.
off. But then as you start to save and hopefully start generating revenue, then you can start looking at forecasting to see where you can make hires, for example, or invest in new technologies, things like that.
All right. And should it be the same concept when it comes to scaling the business, like moving from, growing it and moving from maybe one branch to quite a number of branches? Should someone be caught in that temptation of borrowing to scale, or should they work on the revenues that are coming through out of the business? What should happen?
Yeah, well, it's a balance of both. Obviously, loans and investment can help you scale. Having cash will always help you and have that buffer, because if things go bad or if things go wrong, at least you have the ability to pay salaries and pay for the bills of running the business, which is understanding the cost structure is very, very important. Something that we've been working on with the startups this week. But also, I think there's a huge benefit of looking for partnerships and mentors to help you as well. So not everything has to be done through scale through using money, but there's great partnerships that can help you scale as well, which is a great example of us coming to this region is through the foundation and the partnership we have.
Yeah, partnerships, critical.
Yep.
Don't just look about the money.
Right.
Look at partnerships.
Exactly.
People you can hold hands together and move.
Exactly, and you
Right.
take their lessons and learn from them and work
Great.
with them to grow.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Patel. Amit, he is the creative director of Experience House, and this is in London, but he's here for the Entrepreneurs Startup Bootcamp. Of course, it's called Fano Design Week. Of course, started yesterday and it's going to end this Saturday. Thank you so much for being in the
problem.
country,
Thank you.
and we wish you all the best.
Thank you very much.
All
Thank
right,
you.
so that's it for the Take Note segment right here about startups. Keep your questions coming. #Morning Attentive is the place we can engage. But at this point in time, we'd like to link to Stephen Bide. Unfortunately, there's something happening. We're having riots, protests where you are. Bide, what's happening? Do let us in.